ladies and gentlemen, the goose is loose. Before we start this quick video with the proper army update and finally some painting, I want to give a big shout out to my main man, my biggest fan, Aidan. So hey Aidan, how you doing? Glad you're enjoying the channel. Hope you like this video too. Now I'm going to give a quick update here about some stuff that I've done, and that includes actual painting of actual models. So I'm going to show you some stuff that I've done. I'm going to show you the Inquisitor that I've kit bashed and I've started to paint. I'm going to show you the vehicle that I've painted for the Sisters of Silence. And I'm going to give you a little bit of background on what I'm going to do with the Inquisitor. So I've made a couple of decisions. One, he's an Ordo Malleus Inquisitor. So he's a demon hunter. He's fighting the forces of chaos in all their incarnate forms. So we know what our Ordo is now. And one of the main reasons for that, and I've been toying with it, and I like the idea of a demon hunter, and it means I have access to Grey Knights later and a good narrative for using Grey Knight warriors. But what I really fancy is I've been looking for which Space Marine chapter is going to support my Inquisitor. Because I'm doing an Imperial army, I'm going to do some Marines at some point. I'm going to do some Primaris Marines at some point. I'm going to do some regular Marines at some point. And probably a week and a half's time, we're going to get the new Codex, the new Space Marine Codex. And I can't wait for it. It looks brilliant. Now, as anyone who's followed the channel will know, my leaning was very much towards Imperial Fists. And I still love the Imperial Fists. But the reason that I'm not going to do those is that a lot of people in my gaming group are currently doing Imperial Fists, and all their armies look beautiful. And at best I can hope to make something that looks as good as theirs. At worst, it's not going to look quite as good and I'm going to be slightly disappointed. And I wanted to do something different. So I've been scanning a few different books, looking at some resources, and I started rereading my Imperial Armour books, particularly IA 9 and 10, which detail the Bedaub Wars. And in there is a chapter that I've quite fancied for a while, and they're in a colour I've never done, and they are a chapter that has very close ties to the Ordo Malleus. So narratively they are perfect to go with my Inquisitor. In fact, they have secret Ordo Malleus bases on their homeworld that I could easily have my Inquisitor from or working out of. And that chapter, drumroll please, is the Exorcists. So they are a chapter who have a red livery, they've got a big evil skull, horned skull as their motif, and they are demon hunters. They are unbelievably resilient. There's rumours that as part of their initiation trials they even get possessed and force themselves to undergo an exorcism and to fight the creatures of the warp. They are the perfect chapter to accompany an Inquisitor, and have done on many occasions, and they are going to be the chapter that accompanies my Inquisitor. So we're going to jump to a totally different colour scheme again. We're going to base all our models the same so that they match up quite nicely, but we're going to have some of the Militarum Tempestus, the Tempestus Scions. We've got our Sisters of Silence. We've now got an Inquisitor model that I'm really excited about, and we've got a game in with him, so updates on that coming soon. But then we're going to have our Exorcist chapter, and they're going to be all in red with black shoulder pads and completely different to anything I've painted before. So looking forward to using yet another exciting GW colour spray, which is my new favourite thing ever, and we'll get into that very soon. So that's the update on the army. Rest of the video is going to be me showing you some of the paint schemes, so really hope you enjoyed them. Let's get stuck in. Cheers, Aidan. So the first technique I'm going to show you is what I'm doing with the gold armour on the Inquisitor. So what I decided to do is a similar technique to what I'm using on my Sisters of Silence, so they match up and they look similar. That's using Retributor armour as the base coat, and that's a fantastic colour because it's available in a spray can, and the new Games Workshop spray can range, the coloured sprays are just fantastic. I've had a really good experience using a number of different sprays recently, but the Retributor armour is the one that I've used most recently, and it gave two things I was really pleased with. Very flat coverage, and it goes a long way with a very small spray of the can. So you get fantastic coverage, really good colour, and you get a lot of value for money. So initially the can appears quite expensive compared to some other sprays if you're just used to undercoating in white or black, but actually it's a huge time saver and a fantastic way to get really good colour on your model. I'd be very careful that you don't oversaturate. It doesn't need a lot, you don't need to soak the models, and you can lose a bit of detail as you can with any spray, but I had a really good experience with this, both on the Rhino that I've painted, and I'll show you that in a little bit, and on the Sisters of Silence that I'm currently painting. So the Inquisitor I wanted to be really ostentatious. You want to be a big show off, something very over the top. So I thought I'll go with gold. It will match the Sisters, and it'll look very inquisitorial and rich and wealthy. And so what I've gone with is this gold star, and what I'm doing, and I'll show you this with a couple of the Sisters models. First off is a wash of Reichland Flesh Shade over the whole model once it's been base coated. So that tones down the gold, it puts a little bit of shading into some of the recesses. You can see it on the shoulder pads there and on the armour plates. And then I've been layering back up using Retributor armour. So taking just the regular Retributor armour base colour and using a brush, layering back up on all the flat surfaces and again around any areas that don't have recesses in them. So I've left that darker colour in all the recesses. Again, the shoulder pad's probably not a bad place to see that. You start to build up a little bit of shading and a little bit of depth. So what I'm going to go on to next, and I haven't done this in any of the models yet, is to use Gehenna's Gold. So I'm going to butcher these names if I'm not careful, but that's a lighter gold again, and so what I'm going to do with that is just highlight the very edges of some of those armour plates and bring out some even more depth in that, and then for a very fine edge highlight, just to show a little bit of wear, tear, battle damage or extreme highlighting, we're going to do a very thin layer of Runefang steel on the very edges of some of the sharper surfaces. So that's how we're going to build up that layer. What I'm going to do with the Sisters of Silence is a scheme very similar to what's on the box, and that's on the cloaks. They are purple on the inside, black on the outside, armadillos. So I'm going to paint them in that colour because I like it very much. It's sort of a dark with gold finish on the outside, but then quite opulent and purple on the inside with some other purple markings. For the Inquisitor, I decided I'd do the other way around. I wanted him to tie in with the rest of the force. I wanted the two schemes to look related, but I thought that on his greatcoat, and I'll show you how I built him in a minute, I would do purple on the outside, black on the inside, 1 over armadillos, whatever that is. And that's worked out really well. So I've used Screamer Pink and I've decorated his coat. So I'll show you the model. And he's very much a work in progress. I'm halfway through layering back up with Retributor armour, so I've got some of that layering to finish. So the gold armour is just starting to come together. But on the outside you can see we've done the purple, which is Screamer Pink, and then I've just used Abaddon Black to highlight the black areas. The reason that I've done the great coat first, before I've started detailing the armour, is that access to some of these areas is quite tricky once this model's built, and I didn't want to spend a long time layering the armour up and then make some mistakes or slippages whilst painting in some of the detail on the coat, especially on the inside, and get black all over everything. So I blocked in the main colours first, and once I was happy with those, then I'm starting to work up the armour, after which I'll then shade and highlight the rest of the coat. So I'm hoping that purple will start to pop a little bit more, and then I'm going to paint the rest of his details. So I built this from, as you'll be able to tell if you know the box set, the Tempestor Prime model, because I love that greatcoat. I think that's a brilliant piece of decoration for an Inquisitor. It sort of shows rank and it looks very opulent. And I'd really much like the rod as well. I've armed him with a null rod because I thought if he's going with the Sisters of Silence, he wants an anti-psycho weapon. It fit the narrative very well. And it was only a very minor conversion. All I've done is I've swapped the bolt pistol for the bolt pistol that comes with the Commissar in the Start Collecting box for the Tempestor Scions, because again it just looks a little bit more opulent and a little bit more archaic and relic weapony. It's really nice. And I did a head swap, and on the head I've put a Marauder, Chaos Marauder head from one of the old Warhammer Fantasy sets, because I wanted a sort of wizened old man look. I want him to be a sort of commanding older Inquisitor. So I'm going to build his face up probably with obviously a flesh tone, a wash down perhaps with Reichland Flesh Shade. For the hair I'm going very light pale grey or white, so probably using something like Ulthuan Grey, perhaps with a very light brown wash and then layered back up with Ulthuan Grey and White Scar just to give it a really edge highlight. I'm thinking perhaps purple for the trousers and black for the boots, so that we've only really got a 3 or 4 colour scheme, so that it will tie in with the rest of the force and it will continue to look relatively simple in terms of the number of colours. And then perhaps the little chain around his neck, I'll go with some silver and pick that out. So I'll keep you updated as I move on with this. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and grab the Null Maiden Rhino that I've painted for the Sisters of Silence, which is the first finished model for this force, and I shall bring that and show that to you in just a second. So here we are with the Null Maiden Rhino, my first finished model for this Inquisitorial army. As I said in one of the previous videos, this is actually a Rhino that's had 2 different base coats on it over the years, and I just wanted to crack on and get something painted. So all I did was I sprayed over the top with Retributor armour, and if you look carefully you'll see I have lost some detail, particularly around the smokestacks, some of the joins and so on. So it's not perfect, but I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. It's the first time I've ever painted a Warhammer 40,000 vehicle, or any model of this scale really. I've always had a bit of a phobia when it comes to painting something this big, and a bit of a mental block about where to start. So I sprayed it with the gold. Gold finish again is fantastic. And then I just painted some red into the front and rear corners. And then what I've done from there is a wash again of Reikland Flesh Shade into all the details, all the gaps, and then an edge highlight of Runefang Steel. And I started off doing that very, very carefully, and giving we sort of gave a very fine finish. And when you look at it, really defines the model and gives it some depth. In some areas, I've actually gone a little bit deliberately clumsy with it, and from a distance, from tabletop distance, it looks a bit sort of scratched and battered and damaged. And I've gone back and forth on this. I think as a model overall, where I've been cleaner, it's a nicer model, but experimenting with some of the techniques, I actually from tabletop distance quite like some of the rougher edges, because they give it definition from that distance. I'm also quite pleased with the way that I've done the lenses, which was following one of Duncan's tutorials, painting increasingly highlighted layers in the bottom left corner, followed by a white dot in the top corner, and then at the front I've just added in a scroll with a little bit of writing, which I've just done with a very, very fine permanent pen. And it's very much the same on all sides. Quite a simple vehicle really. Took me a relatively long time, but I'm very, very pleased with the results. And again, I cannot recommend the Retributor Armour Spray enough. So we've got the Null Maiden Rhino finished. We're in the middle of working on the Inquisitor. I'm hoping to have him done today. So I'll come back to you with some updates as he gets complete. And then I'm going to finish the Sisters of Silence. Then we've got the Tempestus Scions to move on to. So that's where the army's at. And I will see you guys soon. Goose out.